Good evening, everyone, and welcome to tonight's program. My name is the Reverend Dr. Winterbourne Harrison Jones, and I am honored to serve as the pastor here at Witherspoon Presbyterian Church. And we welcome you into this sacred place as we embark on this night of inspiration with our very special guest, Indiana Basketball Hall of Famer Walter Jordan. Tonight's program is an invitation for us to learn together. The theme is faith, tested and tried. And through the words of this wonderful book that we encourage everyone to purchase, Gracefully Broken, a Hall of Famers' True Story, we pray that each of you watching and here in the sanctuary are inspired. You know who our star is for tonight, Mr. Walter Jordan, and so I will not introduce him. And our interviewee, Mr. Ray Compton. So I want to introduce those who know these two gentlemen best. First, a dear friend of Witherspoon, Reverend Deb Mitchell, will introduce our author for tonight. And then a lifelong member of Witherspoon, Elder Kathy Jordan, whom you may know has a special connection to our author tonight, who is a consultant and sports and entertainment strategist and the former vice president of team and player development for the Indiana Pacers, will offer a very special introduction to our interviewer, Mr. Ray Compton, who is a noted sports writer in his own right here within our city and known throughout the nation. I want to say thank you to our streaming team who is with us tonight, bringing this special occasion to you. Alexis and Brother Gary Holland, give them a hand. And to our hospitality team here at Witherspoon, Minister Josiah McCruston and Dr. Jillian Harrison Jones, give them a hand. Without further ado, Reverend Deb Mitchell, followed by Elder Kathy Jordan. Thank you, and let us be inspired together. God bless you.
Oh, everybody's tall tonight. Good evening, everyone, and thanks for coming out to spend an evening with Walter Jordan. Thanks to Witherspoon Church and everybody here for hosting tonight. I'm Deb Mitchell. I'm a preacher without a pulpit, so in sports parlance, I'm a free agent for God. Here in this house, we believe that everything has a reason and a season, that love and grace are enduring truths and the things that will triumph. And I know you're saying to yourself, we didn't come to hear you preach, but you probably should have thought of that before you gave me the microphone. Seriously, we're here tonight because Walter was a role model of mine, and he's written a book about his inspiring life. Starting in a house with 9 siblings that was rich on love and faith and kind of fell short in other ways, Walter was able to rise to be a star. But that doesn't surprise any of us who knew him at Northrop. He describes himself in the book as a person of a strong, firm foundation of faith. He had family members and coaches who poured into him. He has the essence of his mother that directed his path and still probably does. And he had this incredible talent, but it was coupled with this wonderful humility. He was a teenage leader, not just as the captain of the mighty, mighty Bruins state championship team. Thank you very much. But he led Northrop High School and Fort Wayne as well, from hatred and exclusion and fear to everyone feeling like they were part of a team. So thank you for that. And as you'll read in his book that we hope you'll all purchase tonight, he always felt like he was part of a team. Walter never claimed leadership, But he was 6'8", so everybody looked up to him. I mean, literally, it's like, hey, Walter. But he had this wonderful face of compassion and courage and consideration and just cheerfulness, that he was kind of like this walking lighthouse that would walk through the halls of Northrop, and we'd just look up and say, yeah, everything's going to be okay. Northrop was begun as part of the federal mandate to desegregate. And what they ended up doing was they pulled kids from all over town. I thought I was going to go to Snyder, which was right down the street, but no, I went to Northrop. Walter thought he was going to go to Central, but no, he went to Northrop. Pulled us all together. And Northrop was a brand new school that nobody wanted to go to. It was in the middle of the cornfield. I mean, no one wanted to go there. And it started out really ugly with white, angry, ugly folks, parents, acting like idiots, and scared teenagers who were all sleep deprived because we had to get up early, who were all sleep deprived, fighting each other. But Walter and his friend Jeff, who was here earlier tonight, did something magical. They made everyone know that they were part of a team. They made everyone feel included. They made everyone feel like they were something bigger than themselves. And this church is a leading voice in our presbytery in their plan to eradicate systemic racism. And just like Walter led the Mighty Mighty Bruins to feel like we were all part of a team, I think it's up to us to make these kids who need to have care and love poured into them. I think we're the leaders here. And I hope that we continue to be leaders. And soon you'll hear about my crazy notion to build basketball hoops in church parking lots. So that's going to come along a little bit later. It's called Hoop Dreams, but get ready for it. Walt writes in his book that he reminds himself frequently who he is and whose he is. That who we are is what the Word of God says we are. We are beloved, and we are special, and we are put here for a purpose. And we are called to remind others of that. So we are all part of this team to help grace and love triumph. So this is the end of the sermon. It's the beginning of an evening with Walter Jordan, a friend, a leader, a role model, a Hall of Famer who was the first to call himself gracefully broken. Thanks for coming out tonight.
So I get the pleasure of introducing this next young man. I define him as a promoter, a journalist, an event planner, creative, a sports czar, a man who can do it all, and my very first boss with the Indiana Pacers. He took a chance on me. I gave him a hard time. He had to ask me back 3 times. But he hired me, and I had a 25-year career after that because of the chance you took on me. Very few people can say that they have a special friendship with their ex-boss. And I can say that twice, one with Donnie Walsh and one with Ray Compton. Ray has always been there for me. He's pulled me into a lot of the things that he's promoted. He supported me, and thank you for doing this for us, the church. It's my pleasure to introduce to you now Mr. Ray Compton.
You can do that again, please. More applause. All right. Thank you. And very inspiring message from all of you. And it's my pleasure, and I'm not going to say a lot because I want him to talk a lot. Let's have a round of applause, maybe even a standing ovation for Walter Jordan. Thank you very much, and I hope all the streamers were standing in their living rooms applauding. Let me be honest with you all. I'm not the world's best book reader. I occasionally will read a book. I prefer computers and that kind of reading. But Kathy, of course, when she asked me to do this, I wanted to read the book. And Walter, it's an incredible journey in life that you've taken. And I'll use the word inspiring again. The book is so inspiring. And congratulations to you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
And I hope there's a sequel.
Thank you.
Will there be a second book?
It's all in God's plan. So
All
I
right.
have no idea what God has. He's got a crazy sense of humor. So
Well, the book is delightful. And it takes you from the early chapters of his life in Fort Wayne through life in Atlanta. We've allowed him to go to Georgia because he likes warmer weather, which I don't know why anybody would do that. But the subtitle is Passion Drove Him, Compassion Guided Him. And that was really well put. And Walter, I'm going to ask you a few questions. I thought one of your earlier chapters was fascinating. 312 East Masterson.
wow.
You want to give a little background on that?
Before I get started, I'll be remiss if I didn't thank Pastor Mitchell and Pastor Jones and Kathy and for church for inviting me down. This is unbelievable. For some reason, God has granted me just incredible favor over my life, despite my heartaches, my imperfections, my flaws, my foolishness, me playing the victim. God has granted me unbelievable favor. I am so grateful. I do not take any of this for granted. If one people wrote the book and was inspired by it, it was worth it. So the question was 312 East Masterson. 312 East Masterson was a special, special place. 7 boys sleeping in one bedroom. We didn't have nothing, but we had everything. We had the most praying human being I've ever met in my life, and that was my mom. And I can remember her on her knees, not standing, on her knees every night after working, standing on her feet for 8, 9, 10 hours working at a laundromat, making $56 a week, praying out loud. And we're downstairs being crazy like kids do, and she's upstairs praying out loud, and she wouldn't get up until she's mentioned all of our names in some kind of way. Help this hard-headed boy understand he got to listen to me, or help her do better in school. You know, whatever it was, we heard my mom. So 312 East Madison was just an unbelievable neighborhood. Those kids we grew up with we're still like family today. Back in the days when there was porches, where parents would go and sit on each other's porch and after work and after a hard day, and they'd just talk. Moms would talk, dads would talk. You'll see dads getting up in the morning with their lunch pails and their hard hats, going to work clean, coming back filthy. But yet they'll go eat dinner and they'll come out and make sure we all was all right. And if we got in trouble anywhere else outside of the house, my parents knew it before we got home. So we knew we were in trouble. We knew we were in trouble. There was something that we still laugh about. Those, and you see Deb Mitchell up here. I get so emotional when I think about my relationships, when people really care about you and love you. This is not just happened because I wrote a book. This stuff is the real Jeffrey O'Stratton, Doris Lieberman. These people have been in my life since sophomore, junior year in college. They have my back. They have my back. So I never got caught up in what people said about me because I had enough friends. I had enough people who loved me, inspired me, and they have no idea how much they inspired me and made me better. And I had to go through some stuff and go around the block to come back and find myself. But I've always had that foundation, that love and support. And I cannot ever repay them enough for what they mean to me. And it's not a day go by I don't hear from one of my classmates or somebody at 312 East Masterson Street. When I used to go home, every time I would go home, when I moved away, I made a point to drive down 312 East Masterson Street, hoping I can see one of the parents on the porch just so I can say hello. But it always inspired me when I would drive by my old house and see the 3 bedrooms, my 3 sisters in one room, my 7 boys in one room, my parents in the other room, and how much fun we had, how much love we had. That's why we're still so close today. We're so close today. It's amazing. My younger brother Joe got married Saturday. So that makes 10 out of 10. Jordan's still here, over 60, all married. My older siblings been married over 35 years. My 3 sisters, they got awesome husbands. They're happy. They're safe. What a blessing. What a blessing. In this crazy time we're in, and to have us all still be here and have the love we have for each other. My nephew's here, and I just love him. One of my friends from Fort Wayne here. I haven't seen Stephen Hampton forever. My nephew Aaron's here. And I happen to be staying with Aaron and his beautiful wife. And it's just a beautiful thing when you have family that means everything. And family don't automatically just mean last name Jordan. Family. And to me, that's one of the 5 F's I like to talk about when I tell people, I talk to kids, the 5 F's. I said, F's used to be bad, but F's is when you get grown, it's pretty good. And they said, what is that? I said, faith, family, right? And then find your passion. Find God's plan for you. Find whatever it is he has planned for you, okay? And then get focused. Then have no matter what it takes. No matter what it takes, find your purpose. It's so important that we understand that as we move forward. And once you do that, you'll be able to do anything. You'll do it because you'll know who God says you are. Stop worrying with what the world say you are. Read what God tells you are, or who God tells you are. You're fine after that because it gives you strength and you know who you are. Always been thick-skinned and never worried about what people said about me. Not at all. I couldn't care less because I got something called the Holy Spirit who gives me strength, who tells me who I am. I can do all things. So that's just something I preach to kids, and I hope that explained 312 East Masterson Street because that's where it's all started. Because all I wanted to do was be a part of a team. That's all I wanted to do. I didn't want to do anything special. I just want to get a uniform and a number and be a part of a team. That's all I ever wanted.
Walter, I'm not going to say you're twins, but the last 2 nights I've been watching the biography of Muhammad Ali on PBS. And an amazing man.
Absolutely, the best.
And you look at your life. My father came from a family of 9.
Mm.
You came from a family of 10. I admire how your family has done so well.
Thank you.
And again, it's a credit to, as you call them in this book, Pops and Mama.
Absolutely.
Could you talk a little bit about Pops and Mama?
You can't talk about it without bringing a smile to your face. Still feel their spirit now. Every day, I still find myself talking to my mama. I can be driving down the highway, and everybody say, what would Jesus do? What would Mama do? What would Mama expect from me? And that was my driving force my entire life. Even when it came down to marriage, I was like, when my mom liked her, when it came down to dating, was she like her? And so it was a situation where Pops was like Fred Stanford. He was a comedian. He was funny. He was an amazing man, and he had 10 kids, and he would come home, and he always, he talks about pride. You're a Jordan. Jordans don't steal. Jordans don't do this. Jordan don't do that. I'll tell you a quick story. One of my brothers that came home from one of his basketball games in middle school, and we were all in the room, and he was talking about one of his teammates missing 2 free throws. They lost the game by a point. I'm younger, so I'm sitting here listening. Like one of my brothers, my brothers, my heroes, they're my idols, right? So I'm listening to them, and then Pop's in his bedroom listening to him. So he comes out and he says, "What are you talking about?" He said, "Oh, so JoJo lost the game? He missed 2 free throws?" He said, "Oh, you played a perfect game? Did you miss a shot?" He said, "Your man didn't score? You didn't turn the ball over? You did nothing, right? So you blaming JoJo for losing the game." The message was so profound. It was so profound. Excuses was not going to be allowed in my house. If you say you can't, it just means you can't yet. That was just not allowed. So that's who Pops was. He was give you like subtle. He took pride. He didn't have much. They were so busy giving us stuff and trying to make sure we was okay. But he would get dressed to go out and hang out sometimes with his friends, but all his clothes, the 4 or 5 pair of pants he had, 5 or 6 dress shirts he had, they were clean. They were clean. He took pride in it. He would shine his shoes every time he went out. He took pride in how he looked, and he would get dressed and coming from his boys, "Y'all come here." Will goes, "Yeah, Pop." And he'll get in front of us and he'll do this. He said, "Yeah." He waited for us to say, "Dang, Dad, you sharp," before he said anything. If we didn't say anything, he'll stand there. He'll stand right there till he said something. But that's how Pop was. And he said, "I'm a Jordan, ain't I?" And think about what the mindset he was putting in his boy's mind. You got to have pride about yourself, and everything you do, you got to own it. You got to represent, And that's just how Pops was. But Mama was, she was flat out incredible and gorgeous. I mean, my mom was gorgeous. We would go to a place called St. Vincent de Paul to get our kids' clothes, and on Easter Sunday, we went to church Wednesday, seemed like 5 days a week. Wednesdays and Saturdays and Sundays. And my dad, we only had 1 car, so we would have to walk to church, like about 1.5 miles. And everybody made fun of us because there's 10 of us walking to church and like in a line, right? And so everybody used to make fun of us. But we was going to church. You can hide your tennis shoes if you want to, but you're going to church. And that's just, if you stayed out late at night, it didn't matter. You're getting up and you're going to church. As long as you was in that house, you was going to church. And she also found a way to teach us how to be servants, because if something was going on in the community and they need bodies, she had all these bodies. We wasn't going to volunteer. We was going to show up. Wasn't no volunteer, wasn't no questions, wasn't like, "You want to do that?" No, you go and go do that. So our church is still standing, St. John Missionary Baptist Church. And literally, my brothers and I and the pastor's family, we built that church. We built that church brick by brick. And every time I drive by that church, and $2 a day. And we was going to do whatever Mama said. There was neighbors, elderly women in the neighborhood who needed stuff and run to the store. They would tell my mom, "Hey, I need somebody to run to the store." The closest one to us, we was going to run to the store. We was going to do whatever we had to do. The valuable lessons that we learned to care about other people. And some of those people didn't look like me. They weren't the same color. My mom didn't care nothing about that. Nothing about that. And I think that's why we're all the way we are now. We just love people. And black, brown, red, green, don't matter. Either you're a good person or you're a bad person. And that's just the way we feel.
Let's remember this book, which is Gracefully Broken. And I don't know, Walter, if you're broken. It doesn't sound like you are. And but again, this is the book that he's written that talks about his life.
Let me say this, Ray, about the title, not to interrupt you, because it's very important. It's the key point of the story, Gracefully Broken. I've been wrestling about writing a book. Everybody say, "You need to write a book, you need to write a book." And then when the pandemic hit, I finally had some time to sit there in isolation and think and pray about stuff. And I just started writing one day. The first 2 chapters I send out to my sister Loretta. She's a year older than me. She's phenomenal. She's brilliant. She's a year older than me, and I talk about her in the book. And I sent to my brother Charles, who's one of my mentors, so to get a feel for where I was going. But the first 2 chapters in the books are not the first 2 chapters I started writing. So I had a title in mind, it just wasn't sitting right with me. And Loretta is a national speech champion. She's a writer, she's a poet, she's brilliant. Deb knows Loretta. And I called my sister, and I said, I'm wrestling with, I said, you get the email sent you with the first 2 chapters of the book I'm getting ready to write? And she said, I don't need to read nothing you sent me, man. I said, what do you mean? She said, I know you. So I can write your book for you. You know Loretta. And she said, it took me 2 months, and I'm trying to figure out the title. 2 minutes, she says, the name of your book is Gracefully Broken. I dropped the phone. I literally dropped the phone. It was a wrap. It gave me direction as to what I needed to go and how to write the book. So instead of me erasing and rewind, I now had a direction of what I was going to do with this book. And my brother Charles said the best. He said, once you surrender to God, God wrote the book. And that's my story. I'm sticking to it.
I will say this, Walter, your sister Loretta.
Yes.
Powerful.
Yes.
Powerful lady.
Yes.
I'm so impressed with her. We're going to leave the family momentarily here. You were part of a major story in Fort Wayne and really across Indiana and America in the 60s and 70s when we decided to correct some mistakes that our country
Absolutely.
went into. And that was busing. We decided we needed to clean up our story. And you were impacted by that greatly in Fort Wayne. As spoken earlier, your heart was set on Fort Wayne Central.
Fort Wayne Central, yes, sir. I wanted to be a
becoming
Tiger.
a star there, playing with your friend Ray.
Absolutely.
And all of a sudden, it's like, no, Walter, we're going to send you to this new school called Northrop. And as pointed out earlier, it was a little bit on the outskirts of town. I've talked to some other people about busing. You had to get on that bus
Absolutely.
and go to almost a foreign country.
Absolutely, it was.
What was that like?
It was scary. To be flat out honest with you, it was scary. I went to neighborhood grade school where all my teachers was black. Principal, even vacation, Bible Cruise teacher, she was black. And then I went to a middle school where 90% of the student body was black. And my coaches was black. And my brothers and sisters went to basically an all-black school in Fort Wayne Central. And, of course, I knew every athlete that played any sport at Central because I wanted to be a Tiger. You know, they were my heroes. Like, wow, man, I'm going to be like Clyde Dickey. I'm going to be like Dick Laurie. I'm going to be like... And I used to listen to even the football games on the radio in middle school, just how big a fan I was. So I wanted to be a Tiger, and my best friend Raymond Causey, who I talk about in the book, Raymond was a visionary, and he was my best friend. We used to talk about our dreams, playing together at Central. We would sneak into, don't say this, I'm at church, but we sneak into the middle school game, the junior varsity games, just to watch the basketball games. So we didn't have the money, but we would sneak in through the back door. Somebody wanted to have somebody open the side door, and we would walk in the back door. But that's how big of fans we were. And so when busing came and we had to go to Northrop High School, and I remember I was frightened, but I also knew that my mama and dad weren't going to have no mess. And I was afraid of them more than anything what anybody else could do to me. I was more afraid of my mom and my dad than anything anybody else could do with me at Northrop High School. So when we got out there in the bus, we had to literally pass 4 or 5 high schools. We couldn't figure that out. Why we get in the bus and we got to take a bus 10, 15 miles, and we passing all these other high schools to go to Northrop High School. It's a brand new high school. The building was beautiful. And we got out there the first day, literally, it was like a movie where literally knives and chains and people being thrown through the window. When we got off the bus, they didn't want us there, and we didn't want to be there. It was one of those things. And some of my friends, I remember just literally standing by one of the guys who threw another guy through the window. And I'm fearful because I'm like, I can't get involved in any of this mess. So it was a scary time for everybody, not just blacks, but both blacks and whites. And police was nowhere to be seen. But all of a sudden, after the incident happened, the next day they were everywhere. But it went on for about a week. I saw people getting expelled, and it was just a very tough time. And I thank God that the athletic teams started to perform when football season started, and the Coach Dorfler, the football coach, and also the cross country coach. We had a kid named Rick Magley. You might know that name. Went to Indiana. Was everything. And he was winning everything, and then our football team started to win, and they started, seeing some, coming together. And I was a manager on that football team. I wanted to do something because I love football. Football was my first love, but I weigh about $120, and that wasn't gonna work. There was a guy named Fred Arrington who went on to play in the NFL who reminded me that wasn't gonna work in practice one day. So I became a manager, and so it was just a great experience, great time for me looking back, because we started to bond, and our class was so special. I mean, we were so special. We started to learn from the upperclassmen. I saw what to do and what not to do. I saw leaders like a George McCowan, Bob Daniels, just guys just doing the right thing, and I said, I'm gonna be like him. And I would ask him questions. I said, man, how do you get everybody together? How do you do this? And then some of our classmates, we started to bond, and we knew something special was going on. We didn't know what, but we knew something special was going to happen. We had that feeling from our sophomore year all the way through state champion. We used to talk about the date for the state championship game, to my classmates. Everybody, are you crazy? Nobody know who Northrop is. You're only 3 years old, right? But we knew something special was going to happen, and we just started to love each other. We did things together. I was going to spend time at their houses out north. I mean, stuff was starting. They used to come to my house in the heart of the inner city, which was unheard of back in the 70s. So something special was happening. I think that's the combination of all that helped us pull together, inspired each other, and we won that state championship as a team. And not only just guys in the uniforms, but the student bodies, the cheerleaders, the cheer blocks, everybody. It was just beautiful. In the city. The city got behind us, and God took care of the rest.
Your book, Gracefully Broken, it talks about the Bruins and the mighty Bruins. UCLA was the other Bruins. Not as good as
Oh, absolutely they were.
But anyway, you went to Bloomington.
Yes.
And won the state championship in Bloomington.
Yes.
And you were talking about the coach that had promised he was going to ride a tricycle.
Yes.
To Bloomington. He didn't make that bet come true. But what was it like to win the state championship at this school, which had kind of a rocky beginning?
Absolutely.
But you all came together. What was that experience like, Walter?
Things were blurred to me my senior year. I was 17 years old, and I lost my mom a week before the state championship game. That was the toughest thing I've ever experienced. So here I was a senior. I think I had one scholarship offer to Edinburgh State. And it was tough. We was getting ready to play our arch rivals, Northside. Northside was favored to win the city championship. They were loaded. They had everybody back. We only had 3 lettermen back. We lost 9 seniors the year before, so nobody expected Northrop to do anything. But what people did not know, between my sophomore and junior year, I would spend summertime in Bloomington at IU. I had 2 brothers and sisters went to IU, so they would take me down there for about a month or so. They would drop me off at the Hyper building. I would go play basketball against college players. I would sit in the gym all day because they would only drop me off because they couldn't come back and pick me up until after they were done. So I would spend 6-7 hours a day literally for about a month in that gym playing against grown men. And I was working on my game, and I was taking a snack, and I would just play ball. And so, of course, everybody assumed later on I was going to Indiana, but they were there, so I wasn't going. But it was a situation where I found out that the state championship game was going to be in Bloomington, and I found out the date, March 23rd, and it's in my vision and my heart, and I started sharing it with my teammates. March 23rd, we're going to be right back in Bloomington. My brothers had a way of inspiring me. Man, nobody's heard of Northrop. Y'all ain't going to do nothing. How about this team? How about Anderson? How about this? You ain't going to get out of Fort Wayne. You know how brothers do. And so they inspired me. So I would go back to my teammates, hey, man, March 23rd. We didn't know how it was going to happen. But little by little, we started to believe. And the goal was to get in front of Assembly Hall and play in front of 17,000 people while my brothers and sisters were still there in school with all their friends and make them proud and make mama proud. And that was the big inspiration for me.
Then came another chapter in basketball and life. You were now looking at college.
Yes.
And as you said, you only had one offer going into the state tournament.
Yes.
People thought you might be going to Indiana.
Yeah, absolutely.
But a team from West Lafayette called.
Yes.
What made you go to Purdue, and what was that experience like? By the way, I have to say this. In the parking lot, we had people parking backwards because they had Purdue license.
I feel sorry for those people, right?
Yeah, it was kind of,
they just didn't know very much.
But they didn't know how. But anyway, what caused the decision to go to Purdue?
I thank God. One of the things I thank God that I was not a five-star player, five-star recruit. I was just an average guy happy to be on a basketball team, trying to win a state championship as a team for my community, my school. I didn't have all the stuff that comes with it, where people sweating me and people doing this and your head getting big and all that kind of stuff. I just loved my classmates and my teammates, and we was just having fun. I mean, we had so much fun. It was ridiculous. But my mom had passed, and I had 3 younger brothers. I was the oldest child home now because my other siblings was getting married and finishing school, and so I was the oldest child home. And I wanted to see my younger brothers, make sure they were okay, and I wanted my family to see me play. So I knew I was going to go 2 or 3, 4 hours at the most radius to go to school. And so, but Purdue was like number 5 on that list. It was Michigan, Michigan State, Marquette, IU, then Purdue. But a very good friend of mine who I respect more than anything in the world, got rest his soul, Eugene Parker. He was a guy that to me in Fort Wayne, he was the best player in Fort Wayne in high school. He was an incredible high school basketball player and college basketball player. But Eugene, I've always respected him. Very few people I respect at my age as much as I respect Eugene. But Eugene calls me up one day and says, Walt, I'm going to go visit, an official visit down Purdue. I want you to come ride with me. It's Saturday. I had nothing to do. I thought he was going to go to Tulane because he was their number 1 recruit, and Eugene was Purdue number 1 recruit. So I took along with him, and when I got there, all the coaching staff, they kept calling me Adi Matthews from Illinois because Adi Matthews was supposed to be there, not me. I said, I'm not Adi Matthews. I'm Walter Jordan. What are you doing here? That guy, I just come down here with Eugene. And then they start putting the full court press on me. And they said, and I really liked it. Eugene started selling his vision, how we can play together for 4 years and what we can do together on the drive back. And I said, man, you're going to Tulane. Why are you telling me about Purdue? So long story short, I had so much respect for him. I had a great time at Purdue, and I ended up committing to Purdue.
And there were a lot of familiar names at Purdue at that time. Jerry Seestein, Kyle Macy.
Yes, Joe Barry Carroll.
Bruce Parkinson.
Yes.
Joe Barry Carroll.
Yes.
And it was a great time period for the Boilers. People out there should know this, that now we have 68 teams go to the NCAA tournament. Way back in Walter's days. I mean, way back in the 70s.
You had to say that like that, didn't you?
There were 32 teams that went. And you had to either be 1 or 2 in the Big Ten to get to go. You did go 1 year.
Yes.
And you had to go to North Carolina to play the Tar Heels.
On their home court in the tournament.
On their home court. And I think you lost by only 4 points.
We had the lead with a minute and a half to go.
Wow.
We had the lead in the ball and lost the game. But, yeah, it was crazy, and I know what Kathy's thinking. But we had it was amazing in the Big Ten when we were in, and I'm not saying this just to be saying it, but the Big Ten's the toughest conference in the country, bar none. I mean, you had Indiana undefeated back-to-back. You had Michigan, who went to the Final Four 1 year. You had Michigan State my senior year. You had, it was stacked. You had All-Americans. In fact, 1 year I made first team All-Big Ten. The 4 of the guys on All-Big Tens was first team All-Americans. I wasn't, but they were. So that tells you how good the Big Ten was. So you had to lace it up because every Big Ten team had NBA players on their roster. Everyone, Northwestern from Illinois, they had. So, Kevin McHale's and the Michael Thompson, I can just go on and on and on. You had to lace them up every Magics, and then we were able to play people like Louisville and Alabama, Indiana State with Larry Bird. So it was very competitive and trying to make the dance, and we never finished, I don't think, any worse than third in the Big Ten. Imagine finishing third in the Big Ten and not going to the dance, or second in the Big Ten and not going to the dance. But that's what it was. You only take 32 teams. And if we get into the dance, you got everything, anything can happen, right? So we just wanted to get in the dance. We had the talent, and we had to just get on a roll. And when we finally got in, we saw the brackets. It said Purdue versus North Carolina at North Carolina. I said, okay, thank you. But, we played really well, just had to turn the ball over at the end, and they were able to win the game. So,
a couple things have changed a lot, Walter, in the last few years. One is you were a noted high school player, but you really weren't recruited until your senior year was over with almost. Now you see kids being recruited in the 7th and 8th grade. How do you feel about that?
I run a huge travel basketball organization in Georgia called Team Impact, and we have 170 kids. So I do a lot of college recruits and that kind of thing. I don't allow them to talk to kids until they're at least a sophomore high school. I tell the parents they're off limits because kids can't handle that mentally and emotionally. They start focusing on stuff that they don't need to focus on. They still got to grow. They need to grow spiritually, emotionally, make sure they're getting the academics together. They got so much going on, and you put an additional pressure on them. And then they start to think they're better than they are. Right. And everybody's jockeying these kids and lying to them just so they can be a part of their lives or to get a notch on their belt. So that's one of my kids. And that half my problems is the adults wanting to use kids, and that's, to me, it's so sad. And it should not happen. And our job is to protect these kids and make sure they get what they need. And like I said, I was so blessed. I was not one of those 5-star recruits. I didn't start getting recruited. I remember that 4 weeks when God took me to the state tournament, and I was improving and starting to get it. And I had a guy named Mike Muff, who was the star of the team. He was incredible. It was 20 points, 20 rebounds every night. But Mike started to really believe in me. Like the 10th game, him and Tom Madden, and they would encourage me, say, man, you're one of the best players in the state. You can do it, man. We need you, Walt. We need you, Walt. These are your teammates and my classmates. Walt, man, y'all can do it, And the more they did that, the better I played. So those 4 weeks, it was a blur to me. I was playing the best basketball I've ever played in my life. Go down to Marion, beat Marion at Marion. I had 37 points, and I never thought I'd score 37 points. Then from those 4 weeks, I come back at the end of the state tournament. We had just won. We was out of school on Monday. The whole city shut down. The mayor canceled schools for everybody. So on Tuesday, crazy Indiana, state of Indiana. But on Tuesday, I came back, and literally I get a call from my homeroom saying, come, I got boxes of certified letters from you. So I get there. It's boxes. There's from colleges, from handwritten notes from colleges, offering me, not having discussions, offering me. 2 days later, Louis Orr, the head coach of Michigan, shows up at my door and said, Bob Dunawall from Indiana. This is all happening 3 days after state championship. And I'm blown away, like, what the world's going on? So that's how God works. And so when people, I didn't deal with that a lot. And I thank God that I didn't go through that experience where people, my dad and my mom could care less. I mean, they could care less about basketball, you know. And I so much appreciate them as opposed to the opposite today where you see parents overbearing and the snowplow mentality where, you know, they're trying to get everything out of the way so the kids can be a star. And you have a better chance of dying in a plane crash than being in the NBA or the NFL. You know, those are just the facts. Those are numbers.
Right. And by the way, he does discuss his recruiting in his book, Gracefully Broken. Before we get to the final chapter of the book, I have to ask you that, by the way, you had one of the best mid-range jumpers in the history of the game.
I appreciate
that.
Thank
God they didn't have the three-point line because you would have moved out there in mid-range.
Probably
but you
right.
had a great mid-range jumper.
I appreciate that.
In college sports now, athletes can earn some money. When you played in the previous century,
you had to bring that up, didn't you, Ray?
There was no such thing.
Absolutely not.
How do you feel about that, Walter? Was it time to make the change where, again, the athletes can earn additional money?
It's about 10 years, really, past due. I mean, when I played, people couldn't understand the fact that you can go and play in front of 14,123 people every game at Purdue and Mackey Arena. That's the capacity. And television, national television audience with Johnny Wooden and people like that broadcasting, Dick Amber broadcasting games, and, you know, and millions of people watching you around the world on a Saturday, playing IU. Then on Sunday, you're starving. You're starving. Cafeteria's closed. We don't have no money. How you gonna eat? So you had to find a girlfriend that had an apartment to make sure you got something to eat. I mean, you didn't have money to even take your girl to a movie. Think about that. You just played in front of millions of people. The coaches all got multi-million-dollar contracts, shoe contracts. You know, we got free shoes, but they got the money that came with the shoes. So it was about time they did something. Now, the difficult side of it is you got to make sure these kids are getting some kind of financial literacy. They got to make sure, because that could be a very dangerous thing too. Because everybody's coming at these kids, everybody's sweating these kids, girls are sweating these kids, adults are sweating these kids. They want to pip these kids. They know they got money. The backup quarterback at Alabama, the backup quarterback has already made $1.6 million. I mean, how ridiculous is that? And a lot of these kids come out of high school because they don't teach us in high school even how to balance a checkbook. So something's got to change, because that could lead to some serious drug problems and other things, because you got all this money and you're the big man on campus and everybody's trying to be your boy, everybody's trying to be your friend. So you just got to, I mean, something's got to change with that. I like the fact that they are getting paid, but they've got to institute something to make sure they're getting educated.
Okay, let's do this. Before, what I'd like to do, Kathy, can I open up to the crowd for questions? Okay, but before I do that, I'd like to have Walter, we're going to go back to maybe more philosophical questions. Your last chapter, you talk about 3 points. The fool, the victim, the kingdom. Can you maybe explain to everyone your thoughts on those 3 topics?
That was the most difficult chapter to write for me. When you have to man up and confess to the world, because you hear all these stories about your life, and most of it's good, and then but you want people to know. Kids don't want to know how perfect I was, or they want to know I fall down too. I fell down, that had my problems. I had my questions and my imperfections. I've sinned. I'm a sinner. And that's how you get kids' attention. They want to know you can relate to them if you care about them. I always say it's three things. I said, the first thing, number one, Satan has a serious game plan for your life. He wants to see you in a body bag or jail. That's the bad news. The good news is, so do God. God wants to see you in the kingdom. He wants to see you live a quality life. He wants to see you become a leader. He wants to see you become the best you can be. He wants to see you impact other people's lives. He wants to see you flourish. That's the good news. The third thing is the best news. The best news is you get to choose which one you want to choose. And so when I started writing that chapter, I thought about my life. The first part of my life was I was a fool, because there was times where I swayed from my mom's teaching and from the word and thought I was something, thought my stuff didn't stink. And God humbled me. And I tell anybody, you better humble your butt before God get a hold of you, because when God get a hold of you, it ain't going to be pretty. And God humbled me. I remember being on that surgery table, and the doctor said, well, sign this, because you've been there. You said you had quadruple bypass heart surgery. And you start thinking about your life. Everything flashes in front of you, right? And sign this, because you might not come back. And so you need to know who's going to have your will and all that stuff done, prepared. And I remember like yesterday, and I tell people this. I wouldn't say this very few places, but I'm in the church, so I can say this because you guys will understand this. I spoke to my mom. I spoke to my dad. It was as real as we sitting here today. And my mom says, get back in there, boy. God ain't done with you yet. And I remember that. And when they woke me up from surgery, my surgeon says to me, he said, I've never seen anything like it. I said, what? He said, when you came through, you were smiling. He said, my brother Charles said, man, what in the hell happened? You were just smiling. And so it's 15 years ago that happened. And that changed my entire life, because I knew I had to get it right. I had to get it right, because I was not having it right. So that was part of the growth. So you have to struggle. You must struggle sometimes. You got to struggle. God takes you through things for a reason, right? And so after that, I thought about the foolish part, the victim part, was like blaming everybody else, my situation. And I had to call people and man up and say, that was me. It was on me. We didn't make it because it was me. We didn't do it because it was me. It wasn't you. It was me. And that was tough to do. And I asked for forgiveness. And whether they choose to forgive me or not, I knew God had forgiven me at that point. And when God forgives you, who cares what anybody else does? And that's just was my thinking. That's just how I feel. And I'm telling you, I'm at a different place in my life where I have peace in my life. Writing the book was so therapeutic for me. It's been such a blessing. The response has been overwhelming. And I cried thinking about some of the texts and phone calls and emails I get every day, even from people I don't know from around the country. And I'm just so blessed. I'm so humble. So that's the part where I was the fool, the victim, and fighting like hell to get to the kingdom. So I'm fighting, and I'm not perfect, but Lord knows I'm going at it every day, and he knows that I'm fighting to get there.
Wow. Does anybody have any questions you would like to ask Walter? Yes, please.
You're from such a large family. You have children, nieces, nephews that have followed your career as college or pro basketball players?
Let me repeat the question so
Okay.
our streaming people. She was asking Walter about, he comes from a large family. How many kids do you have? Are any of those kids planning on being athletes?
Yes. We're just a basketball family. We're a sports family. I started with my older brothers. And one of my older sisters, she's Loretta. Loretta was a great basketball player. She used to beat me up all the time. She was a year older than me. She was a great basketball player. And my nieces and nephews were great athletes. One of my nephews here, he was a great high school basketball player, guy's degree, got a beautiful bride. I'm staying in his house. I just love him to death. But I have probably about 25 nieces and nephews, and we're very, very close, and they're very, very close. My daughter, Asha, she actually played Division I basketball. She played at Albany in New York, and she got a degree. She got a master's degree from Clemson, and she was coaching college basketball before she had her first child. He's my grandson. He's 6 now, and she just had my granddaughter, and she's 7 months already. So yeah, Asha was a pretty good high school basketball player. It's funny because I didn't want her to play basketball because she was brilliant. She was literally brilliant. She wanted to be a doctor at first, and I was excited and she had a partial offer to go to Harvard University, which she turned down because she wanted to go play basketball. But that was her dream, and that was her passion. But she's done very, very well. I'm very, very proud of her. And my other daughter, Ari, she's a junior at Howard University. Yes.
Any other questions for Mr.
And I'd be remiss if I didn't mention my son, Jamarcus.
I'm sorry.
I lost my son. He was my best friend. He was an amazing child. He was very close to Kathy, but he was a very, very special child. He was into the drama scene and the acting and the modeling. He was 6'2", 6'3", and just handsome and just could do all the things that I wish I could do. He could do it, but he passed away after 3 years of struggling, and passed away at 28 years old. So yeah, that's my children.
Okay, again, the book, Gracefully Broken. Buy it. I'm going to give you Kathy Jordan's telephone number and call her, give her a credit card, 317-446.
He's serious, isn't he?
8771.
Well, let me do one better than that. If you want,
give Kathy a call and order several copies of this book.
You can go online to my website, guys. It's walterjordan.com. walterjordan.com, and if you need to reach me, it's just walter@walterjordan.com. So walterjordan.com also has all my events on there and other programs I'm involved in with my kids. You see all kinds of different things that we're doing. We have I want to mention this. We have a nationwide youth leadership conference, January 1st and 2nd, starting the new year. Well, I used to do 10 a year physically, but because of the pandemic, we're going virtual right now, and we could probably sell out at 100 kids. So I want to promote that because it's intense. It's young men only, ages 13, 18, and we get down in the locker room. It's serious. I mean, we go at it. We have some phenomenal speakers. And all that stuff is on my website, walterjordan.com, and we want to pack that out with kids across the country. Some dynamic speakers, and we do workshops, and they get involved, and we talk about every issue there is to talk about, and we hit it head on because it's time for us to be bold with our kids and let them, help. We can mold them, and just. So I'm real passionate about that. That's. To me, it's the most important thing I'm doing right now is that my youth leadership.
Let's do remember this telephone number. 317-446-8771. Ask for Kathy. Okay, I want to wrap it up by saying thank you to the church for allowing us to be here. Thank you to Kathy for allowing us to give out her telephone number, 317-446-8771. And I will say this about Gracefully Broken. I truly believe you could be in middle school, in high school, in retirement, working every day of your life, and you will find this book inspiring. You will fall in love with Pops and Mama. You will realize that Walter's sister, Loretta, ruled him.
Jeez. She loving that.
And you will admire all his brothers and sisters. Walter, the last time I talked to you, I believe, was in 1977. A few years ago. You've gotten better.
I appreciate that.
You're a remarkable human being. And thank you from all of us for your great book.
Thank you, Ray. Let me say this, because when Kathy told me that I would be blessed by you doing this, you agreed to do this, that touched my heart, because I followed your career, and I saw that you were one of the best to ever do it, and everybody knew who you were. And she said, "You remember Ray?" Yes, I remember Ray. But I just appreciate what you poured into in this community and this example today, and you poured into these kids, because it was more than a job for you. It was a passion. You can tell, it was a passion for you. You were everywhere. You were everywhere, and you just gave your heart and soul to this community and to the state and us athletes and us non-athletes. And I just want to tell you from the bottom of my heart, I appreciate you being the type of person and individual you are, and that means the world to me that you would take time to do this. So thank you.
It's easy when you're trying to be with someone like you. I do admire the fact that you've got less hair than I do.
Thank you.
It's not easy.
You still better looking.
Thank you, streaming audience. Pastor Jones, thank you. And we'll let you close the show.
Thanks everybody for showing up. Really appreciate you guys.
Let's give Walter Jordan and Ray Compton a hand.
Much love, much love.
Come on, you can do better than that. Let's give them a hand. What an inspiring night.
Thank you.
Certainly, passion drove him and compassion guided him, and we are so thankful to both of you for being here with us tonight. Now, Walter, before we leave, give us where else you will be on your tour this visit.
Let me pull it up. I have a team. Like I told you, everything I do is a team. Lord knows I can't do anything by myself, and I don't intend to.
317-446.
Anybody have a connection and pull up my website? There's my nephew, always coming through. Thanks, nephew. Give my nephew some love, guys. Tomorrow at 10 o'clock a.m. at Dyes Walk Country Club, Greenwood, Indiana. At 2 o'clock, Highland Country Club. That's 1050 West 52nd Street. At 6 o'clock, a television interview with sportscaster, Dave at Channel 13. And at 7 o'clock, Harry and Izzy's. I'm not sure. I think that's downtown. Oh, thank God. Because I'll be hungry about them for sure. I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
Which Harry and Izzy location? Downtown or?
I'm pretty sure it's downtown.
Downtown. Okay.
I'm pretty sure it's downtown.
So all of those events are on your Facebook page, on your website. I know I've seen them.
Yes, just walterjordan.com. Click on events.
Okay.
And also the information about the youth conference, New Year's Day. It's 2 days. If you guys got young men, please get them registered. You don't want them to miss it because we pour our heart out. I got a 15-year-old dynamic entrepreneur brother. He is off the chain. He is so fired up. But he's probably got like 25 million followers. He's amazing. And so we're nailing down some other key speakers, and so it's gonna be a fun day, fun 2 days for sure.
All right, we ask God's blessings on all of your endeavors. Let's give Walter Jordan another hand.
Thanks, Pastor. Thank you.
I'm going to share a few more remarks, but I'm going to ask a very special guest, Reverend Billy Myers, to give our closing remarks tonight as we prepare to bring our evening to a close. Let me say thank you again to Deb Mitchell and to Kathy Jordan, to the Witherspoon family, and to all of you watching. Hopefully you have been as inspired as we have been on tonight. Certainly I have enjoyed this story. We thank Deb for introducing you again to the Witherspoon family, and to Kathy for being such a gracious host, a lifelong member. I know Mommy is proud of you. Reverend Billy Myers is more than a musician. He is an Emmy Award-winning actor and has a very special connection to our two guests on tonight. And so I thought it fitting if he would give our final remarks. Thank you so much for joining us, and God bless you all.
First, I would like to say congratulations, Walter. That is a I can't wait to get my copy of the book immediately following. But it is something when we can reflect back on our journey and be able to find those stories, those struggles, those various relationships along the way that sort of carve out a path, and we can cultivate over time a real appreciation for those experiences and the people that come into our lives. So I am inspired by hearing of the book and inspired by you sharing your stories with us this evening. So thank you. Thank you so much. Also, Ray Compton, I was explaining when I walked into Pastor Jones that Ray Compton I've probably known since I think I was about 4 or 5 years old. My uncle was also a sports writer in the department with Ray Compton, and I would tag along to some of the high school games, and because they had to go immediately in and write these stories, I found myself oftentimes after got my hot chocolate laying underneath Uncle Mike's desk and sleeping until they got their stories filed and they showed up in the morning newspaper. And it was always a great source of pride to look at these sports pages and see that somehow in some strange way I felt a part of that process, because I was at the game, and then you see the photographs and the stories, and I got to see not only my uncle's wonderful stories, but Ray's and Denny's and Wayne. So the whole crew down there, Zach Duncan, and just an amazing group of folks. But also then Ray, as he excelled and left the sports writing, becoming a major leader and force in the community in his leadership with the hockey teams and the ice and some of the antics and the great promotional stunts and everything else. He's the man. So it is truly a blessing to see these two great forces in the state of Indiana sharing the stage together this evening and sharing their wonderful stories with us. And so on behalf of Witherspoon Presbyterian Church, I thank you. Let's hear it for Ray Compton and Walter Jordan.